And we are joined by Congressman Dusty Johnson, who's running to be the governor of South Dakota. And just for starters here, what makes you want to leave your post in Congress to come back to a state seat? I think many in political circles, especially people who really enjoy politics, they might actually enjoy that D.C. arena a little bit more than coming back to Pierre, which is a lot more slow.
Well, it has been an incredible honor to serve our state in Congress the last 7 years, and we've gotten a lot of things done. I mean, working with President Trump to secure the border, cut $1.7 trillion worth of spending, I feel good about that. And yet this is a great state. And I think the next 20 years can be the best 20 years for South Dakota, but that's not going to happen by accident. We're going to need a real plan, we're going to need real leadership to be able to get that done. And Blake, I'm incredibly excited to be that leader to pull together the team and that plan.
Are there any lessons that you learned in Washington, D.C. that you want to apply to state government here in South Dakota? Yes,
I think people have been surprised at how successful the Republican House has been. Generally in D.C., the politics are hard scrabble. The Republicans have a very narrow margin. So how do you get Republicans who are kind of in the center and then Republicans who are all the way on the far right? And how have we been able to get things done together week in and week out? It hasn't always been pretty, but we have absolutely gotten things done. And I've been one of the chief lieutenants. I mean, I've been the person that Speaker Johnson, Donald Trump looks to try to make sure that we are all working together as a team. And we need more of that in South Dakota. I think we've got a highly divided legislature. I think we need somebody who's got a proven track record of pulling folks together to get things done.
I want to talk about some of your committee assignments as it pertains to how this might actually apply to the state of South Dakota. What have you learned both serving on the Agricultural Committee and is it the Select Committee on China technically?
Yeah, and also the Transportation Committee. I mean, these are meat and potato issues. Clearly you look at agriculture and transportation, incredibly important to South Dakota. And I've been recognized as one of the most successful members of Congress in those areas, Congress in and Congress out. And so I've been able to get things done. And frankly, I understand how the impact that they have in the South Dakota economy. The South Dakota economy is not doing as well as we want it to. And in fact, in the last 6 months, our economy has shrunk at a time when the rest of the country's economy has grown. So how do we use those transportation and agricultural assets to do a better job? We need a plan for that. And then with regard to the Select Committee on China, China's not our friend. It is insane to me that we let the Chinese Communist Party and their partners buy up our farmland, buy up our agricultural processing facilities. And so I've got a bill that would ban China, as well as our other adversaries, from making those kinds of purchases in this country.
Did you receive any intel serving on that committee that they are eyeing any land here in South Dakota?
Well, we know they've already, across the country, they've purchased land. Now, it's still a relatively small amount, but the right time to shut the barn door is before the cattle are out. We know that in the last 10 years, China has increased their holdings of farmland outside of China by 1,000%. Now, only a little of that is in America because they started by focusing on the global south. South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. And yet they are absolutely shifting their eye toward America. Now is the time for us to say absolutely not.
If you were to lobby Washington, D.C. on behalf of the state of South Dakota, what would you be lobbying for? I mean, from your view as a congressman, if you were to turn governor and try to bend the ear now of federal representation, what would be some of the key issues you think D.C. needs to help out with here in South Dakota?
Well, when America is doing well, generally that means South Dakota is doing well. And so clearly securing that southern border was a huge victory that I was proud to be a part of. Cutting federal spending. I mean, if our federal government goes bankrupt, that is bad news for every single American. Making sure that we've got welfare programs that really work, that encourage people to get off the sidelines and get back to school or to volunteer or to work. Those are things that make America stronger, and those are things that I've already been able to deliver working with the president. Now, closer to home, what does South Dakota need to do for South Dakotans? Clearly, we need to reduce property taxes. Clearly, we need to put students first in education. You look at our technical school tuition, it is more expensive than by far than the average of technical school tuitions in our region. We need to change that. We also, if we want to keep taxes low, if we want to keep regulation low, we need to continue to have the kind of focused, reasonable growth, not growth for growth's sake, but growth that is going to allow us to keep taxes low.
Property taxes, that was a major subject of the last legislative session. If you were governor, how would you address that issue? We've heard of elderly people returning to work at big box stores to pay their property taxes. Other people just telling us about the financial strain that it's putting on. They're uncertain if they're going to be able to remain in their home. So this is a major issue for a lot of people, especially out here in the West River region, where property values have really increased with in-migration into the state. What would be your plan there?
Well, number one, I would tell you I was disappointed and a little surprised that we didn't get any solutions from the administration and from the legislature last session. I mean, we all know this is a problem. Nobody's wandering around saying property taxes in South Dakota are just fine, we don't need to do anything. And some of the offered solutions from the other candidates, frankly, have not been helpful. You know, when you start talking about eliminating property taxes for everybody, listen, I get it. That sounds valuable. That sounds important. The reality is state government doesn't get any of those property taxes. Those property taxes go to schools and to counties. And yes, there are some efficiencies we can find, and we should. That will help bring down property taxes. But we need to be honest. If we want real property tax reform, it is not going to come from cutting county governments in half. It's going to come from a real plan that includes growing that tax base so we can shrink that tax rate.
When you say growing that tax base, you're talking about identifying other tax sources possibly?
No, I'm talking about growing this economy. Again, South Dakota's economy in the last 6 months has been shrinking while America's economy has been growing. That is a big problem if we want a broad tax base. So I'm talking about new livestock, I'm talking about new dairies, I'm talking about energy projects, I'm talking about bringing high-tech jobs to South Dakota. Now, I worked in the technology industry before going to Congress. I was the co-owner of a telecommunications engineering firm. We did business all across the country. And I will tell you that there are South Dakotans who live across this country who would love to move back, but there is no plan for us to figure out how to get that done. And I'll be the kind of governor that makes sure we grow that tax base by bringing people home.
It sounds like, because you brought this up twice now, that you've really looked into the fact that our economy has shrank, as you said, while the rest of the country's has grown. What has been the cause of this? And it sounds like your solution is just to bring more industry here and to expand some of the existing industries. But why do you think it has shrank?
Well, and first off, I'll tell you, this is not about going whale hunting, trying to bring TikTok or somebody massive to South Dakota. I mean, this is really about growing our own. Entrepreneurs are an incredibly powerful engine in this state. We need to do a better job of making sure that the kind of research that goes on at our colleges is tied toward ideas that can launch great new businesses in South Dakota. It's about making sure that we get out of the way of those employers who have 15 employees and want to move to 50. Sometimes they need a little help up. Sometimes it's about getting out of the way. Sometimes it's about giving them a little help up. Because it can be expensive to start a business. Now, periodically, yes, there may be opportunities where we can get a great business who gets so frustrated with the nonsense in Illinois and Minnesota that they want to create a new life here. That's great. But primarily, the rocket fuel for South Dakota growth is going to come from South Dakotans.
The state of the legislature, with the state of the state legislature, not the legislature that you're serving in, what do you make of the current lineup right now, and how do you plan to work with this legislature? A lot of new members this last session. Yeah,
and there has been a lot more infighting than I think is productive. I often I look at it from the national perspective, and I say, boy, when Americans are working together and unified, nothing can beat us. And when we're busy squabbling and fighting amongst ourselves, then we are doing Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping's work for them. And similarly in South Dakota, this is the greatest state in the country. But we're not going to be able to continue to say that if we spend more time fighting than we do in putting together a plan. South Dakota knows me. They know that my politics are fundamentally more about addition and multiplication. Too often in the state legislature, our politics have been instead about subtraction and division. I think I'm going to be the guy to be able to bring a different vision, a different energy, and a different approach to that legislative process.
But how do you actually carry this out? Because there is some infighting within the legislature right now. How do you bring them together? How do you build that coalition?
Well, and you in South Dakota don't have to guess whether or not I'm up to the job, because this is what I have done at the major league level in Washington, D.C. if I've been able to get, along with Mike Johnson and Donald Trump, and again, I mean, there are lots of articles out there about how Dusty Johnson is a key lieutenant in pulling together these different parts of the Republican Party. If I've been able to do it with 221 raucous and rancorous and very colorful members of the United States House, I'm going to be able to do it with these state legislators, many of whom I have known for a long time, many of whom I've got the kind of relationship, a trusting relationship, where they know that I'm somebody who wants to get things done together rather than just blow them up.
What do you make of the, now not the state legislature, but just Congress as a whole?
Yeah.
You serve in the House. What do you make of the state of the current U.S. House right now?
I still don't think that the Republican White House, Donald Trump, the Republican House, and Republican Senate are getting enough credit for the absolute transformation that we've brought. I mean, for 4 years, we were letting 7 or 8 million people into this country illegally. We secured that border. And that is, you know, Joe Biden kept telling us, oh, no, you know, it isn't that easy. It was that easy. And then we cut more money, $1.7 trillion. It's the largest mandatory cuts in spending in at least a generation, and maybe ever. And that wasn't always easy, but we got those things done, and we were able to do it together. And I would tell you, of course, some on the left have made a lot of unfair accusations. They make it seem like rural health care is going to be destroyed by this. Let's make it clear that's not the case, particularly in South Dakota. So many of the savings that we found were by closing the ridiculous loopholes that states like California were using in things like provider taxes and state-directed payments. South Dakota doesn't have provider taxes. We don't have state-directed payments. And so the funding, the savings that we found, those big ones don't even affect South Dakota at all.
You served, we were talking about this earlier, I think it was like the first political interview I did was interviewing you when you were running first to enter the House, and this would have been under with President Trump at the White House. Then you served in the House under the Biden administration, and then now again with the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. Those are almost 3 different administrations. I would say that President Trump's first administration and this administration are fundamentally different, and the Biden administration obviously is its own administration. Can you break down what it's been like to be a House member in each of these?
Yes, I would. First off, the Biden administration was incredibly frustrating. I mean, I voted against $13 trillion worth of spending during the Biden administration. And I said in real time, this is not spending that we need. This is going to move us backwards. On things like the Green New Deal, the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, I knew that Joe Biden was moving us in the wrong direction. And clearly the American people, they agreed. And it was a very bad day for the Democrats in power last November. And I think the Trump administration has been really a time for us to get things done. And I think about the relationship that I've been able to have with Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, Doug Burgum at Interior. These are people who understand fundamentally what life in the middle of the country is like, and how a common sense regulatory environment, low taxes, those can be what power the next great American century. You know, Donald Trump, the biggest difference is Joe Biden actually had kind of a dark, pessimistic worldview. He talked about everything that was wrong with America. Donald Trump talks about the golden age of America. And I get it. He does things that plenty of your viewers are not going to like. But fundamentally, we do need a golden age in America. And it's been an incredible opportunity to work with him to start to bring that more into focus.
But how would you compare the first administration versus the second administration?
I don't see that big a difference in Trump 1 and Trump 2. I mean, clearly some of the characters have changed. I mean, Mike Pence is not J.D. Vance, the chief of staff. I mean, I would tell you that the quality of the team right now. I mean, Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, is as competent and hardworking an administrator as you're ever going to find. I mean, his deputy chiefs are, I mean, James Blair this is a brilliant guy who really understands how to get things done. And so I think the Trump administration too is probably better focused on keeping the operations of government moving well. You know, clearly Doge with Elon Musk, there were some great things with that, and then there were some misfires that, you know, I was able to tell Elon that they had aimed at the wrong target, or maybe they'd missed the target they were aiming for. He and the president were willing to make some adjustments. We didn't have that Doge effort in the first Trump administration.
So if you were governor so far in President Trump's term, has anything he done would it trigger a call to the White House from you if you were governor to say, hey, look, we might need you to reverse course on this? I mean, you just alluded to it a little bit with some of the DOGE cuts that were made.
Yeah, it's a partnership. And so good partners are talking on a regular basis, and they're not just talking when something's headed the wrong direction. They're working together to get things done, and clearly that's the way it's going to be between Governor Johnson and President Trump. Tariffs would be an example where I think we all understand what the president is aiming at. Clearly, some countries don't treat us well. Mexico is not fair to American corn. Canada is not fair to American dairy. So he wants to remove some of those non-tariff barriers, playing a little hardball. I, like most every South Dakotan, has been willing to give him that space to execute that plan. In some respects, it's working. But that would be an area where I think if this was to continue, maybe if the trade war got escalated, I think South Dakotans and their governor would want to have a conversation with the president about, okay, how do we make sure that we get the best possible outcome for American agriculture and American manufacturing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. There was sweeping new announcements on tariffs here last week. I know the soybean industry here, that's one we've spoken to quite a bit, and they've said that they've really kept their eyes on China. Now, nothing was announced recently on China. I believe that extension was pushed out. But as somebody who serves as a member on the Committee on China, where do you see that trade negotiation headed?
Yeah, I think we're headed in the right position because President Trump has been able to project some strength, and I think that's powerful and that's important. My first ever conversation, all the way back in his first term, was about trade wars and the impact on agriculture. When we hit other people with tariffs, generally other countries, particularly China, when they want to hurt us back, they go right to American agriculture. And 60% of South Dakota soybeans are sold to China. So my first conversation with President Trump was, Mr. President, I understand what you're doing. Let's make sure we win this trade war, because a trade war generally takes about $2 off a bushel of soybeans. In South Dakota, we grow 250 million bushel a year, so that's $500 million out of the South Dakota economy when prices are soft. He understood that. He went, he kept working at it, and we moved in a much better direction.
And by the way, I should say that we're doing this interview on August 4th. This is going to air 1 week from the day that we're doing this interview, so it'll be really hard to tell where the exact state of all this is going to be by the time that this actually airs. But so far, broadly speaking, what have you made of his approach with the trade wars that he's initiated in this second term?
Well, and he's not initiating trade wars. I mean, he's
tariff negotiations.
Yeah, he is initiating trade negotiations, and it clearly has borne fruit, exactly like he envisioned, with Japan, with the United Kingdom. We have made some progress with India. There are lots of other smaller countries where we are very, very close to being able to get a deal. The reality is we run a massive trade deficit. And if we want to continue to grow the South Dakota economy, we're going to need more open markets. I mean, even today in South Dakota, we sell $7 billion a year of agricultural and manufactured goods overseas. That is almost $8,000 a year for every single South Dakotan. We would be a lot poorer if we took that $8,000 out of each of our pockets. One of the ways to help us be richer is to take that $8,000 and move it to $10,000, bring that much more money in from the rest of the world. That is what Donald Trump is aiming at. I think the ultimate goal is more trade, not less trade, and he has made a lot of progress in that direction.
Okay, just getting now real basic here. Yeah. I think a lot of people see you on TV, they see the commercials, but they probably don't actually know that much about you beyond the politics. So can you just take us into kind of your origin story and how you came into politics, how you grew up, I mean, all that good stuff, and just kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, working class family. There were 7 of us in Fort Pierre, and I graduated from Pierre. And it was, listen, everybody had a job all the time. I mean, there were times my parents had a couple of jobs. There were times even as a kid in high school, I had 2 or for a little while, 3 jobs. And I've just never shied away from work. I knew, unlike some people who are trapped in a poverty mindset, I never looked at successful Americans and blamed them. I looked at successful Americans and understood that that was the American success story. And that was the kind of thing that I should look to as an inspiration. And so I ended up going to the University of South Dakota. I met my wife there. We lived out of state for a couple of years. We moved back maybe 22, 23 years ago, and it's just been an absolutely incredible opportunity. We've got 3 sons, Max, who's 20, Ben, who's 17, Owen, who's 13. They are also hardworking boys. We live in Mitchell. My wife has a business there. I spend half my time in South Dakota, half my time in D.C., and it has been an absolute honor to be able to be a workhorse. D.C. has so many show horses. It has been an absolute honor to be one of the workhorses that the Speaker and the President look to actually deliver the votes when the chips are down. And I'm looking forward to bringing that workhorse mentality to Pierre.
One thing I notice is we get a lot of these like press, I guess you could call them advisories. Johnson's going to be here. Johnson's going to be there. Do you think there's other members of the U.S. House that are just simply not really returning to their districts as much?
Well, don't take my word for it. I will tell you that we have won national awards. I mean, in a given year, they'll recognize one Republican with this award. We have won awards for the most accessible member of Congress, for the hardest working, for the most effective in areas related to agricultural issues and Native American issues. We have won awards for the best constituent service. And so, yeah, I think when you look at how hard our team runs, no other team in the United States House can match it.
But other teams, do you think there are members that need to get back to their districts more? I'm just broadly speaking, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to criticize.
Yeah, you don't have to name drop here. I'm just
right.
curious what you see over there.
But I am home every single weekend. There is no Saturday night where I'm hanging out in Georgetown at a fancy red wine party. I am buying my groceries at County Fair Food Store in Mitchell. We are going to our church on Sanborn Street. We are engaged with real South Dakotans every single week because those are my bosses. That is who I work for. My oath of office is the Constitution, but it's South Dakota that decides whether to hire me or fire me. And I think my colleagues, some of them are almost scared of their voters. They hardly ever go home, and when they go home, they hide out. That is never going to be Dusty Johnson.
So when you mentioned the age of your kids, I wonder if that's starting, especially you say you have a 20-year-old son, right?
Yeah.
Is he explaining to you any of the affordability challenges that young Americans are faced with? And if so, well, maybe we'll end it here, is just what is your plan to make things more affordable for young people here in South Dakota?
Well, and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the governor of any state is not able to affect the price of gasoline. The governor of any state does not decide what is the global price for eggs. And so a lot of that is national policy and global macroeconomics. What a governor can do is make sure that we are growing this economy so that our wages are going up in this state. We can make sure that we are keeping taxes low so we don't unnecessarily burden South Dakotans. To reduce that tax rate, we have to broaden the base. We have to be willing to find efficiencies within state government. And again, I have done that. As Chief of Staff to Governor Dennis Dugard, I executed his plan to cut every state agency by at least 10% and some of them by 20%. There is only one candidate in the race who has been able to execute that kind of efficiency, and state government was better because of it. And so, yeah, clearly, I'm not going to be able to control the price of eggs. I am going to be able to control the efficiency and the effectiveness of state government. I've done it before. I'm looking forward, with a good team, to doing it again.
Do you think the governor has much as far as housing goes? I know housing costs and the price of rent, the cost to just buy real estate for a lot of young people can be a challenge. Is that something that you've identified as somewhere you might be able to make some progress on?
I mean, a lot of politicians will just tell you whatever you want to hear, and they will whisper sweet nothings in your ear. I mean, the governor of South Dakota, I'm a free market guy. Sometimes government can do price controls. They almost always move us in the wrong direction. The governor of South Dakota does not set the price for lumber. They do not set the price for cement. They do not set the price for nails. They don't set the price for drywall. What they can do is make sure that we have the workers, they can help private industry, make sure that we're a place that people want to move to, that folks who know how to pour basements, that folks who know how to hang drywall are able to make their future in South Dakota. There are some things we can do with infrastructure, clearly sewer, water, electricity, telecom. That extending that infrastructure can be very expensive. There are some things that working with local communities, state government can do, but there is no silver bullet. It's going to be a lot of us working together.
Okay, I just want to give you the floor here and just let you finish with whatever it is that you think we have not touched on that you'd like to get to.
I think the next 20 years in South Dakota can be the best in our state's history. But we need to dream much bigger than we have been. I think we have suffered more recently from a lack of vision. And we need a real plan, we need a real team, we need real vision and real leadership. South Dakota does not have to guess whether or not I'm up to the task, because those have the things that I have brought when I've been in the private sector, when I've been in Congress, and when I was the Chief of Staff to Governor Dennis Dugard.
Okay, that'll do it. Congressman Dusty Johnson, thank you again for doing this. Appreciate it.